maliciously using the ED. You've not been able to get that.
All right, Mr. Sapra, before you respond to what Shehzada said, Mr. Sapra, please allow me one question. Before you respond to what Shehzada said, and this is the point I was trying to understand from you earlier as well, while you may call this vindictive, none of the courts since 2015 to now, ever since Dr. Subramaniam Swamy launched his complaint, has given you the sort of relief that you wanted. There are multiple orders that can be legally argued not favoring the Congress party. So are you saying that by the logic of whataboutery or political witch hunt, you might be able to make a political point, but on the merits of the case, clearly there is some merit that the Enforcement Directorate is trying to probe?
See, even if the court has not given us the required relief, let me then point out that we have, even if we have got the bail, we have got as per the provision in the law. And secondly, since last 10 years, why the ED has not filed a FIR? What is the offence that is not declared as yet? So these are the issues which basically Congress party is also asking. They have the entire money trail. What was AGL? AGL was under loss, and Congress party has given a loan of 90 crores. That is over a span of 10 years, and it is into 100 tranches. It is not given at one shot. And even after giving that loan was given to, give away the gratuity, the provident fund, and the salaries of the people who are working with AGL. Now, even if AGL has not given away the loan,
Mr. Sapra, I don't want to comment on the merits. I don't want to comment on the merits and evidence of a sub judice matter.
Debt to equity.
Yes, it is a question of debt to equity, and there are questions over the transactions that have happened. Were they motivated transactions? I'll come back to Mr. Sapra and Shehzad. I want to bring in other panelists as well.
There's a lie that he's perpetrated.
Please go ahead, Shehzad. Make a brief point, then I'll go to the other panelists.
You know, Anusha, because you cover courts, there's no FIR in ED matters. There's an
ECIR. Yes.
And the ECIR, by the way, does not have to be shared with the accused,
as
has been clarified by the Supreme Court. Secondly, in this matter, ECIR, please, Mr.
Sapra, I'll come to you. I'll give you the opportunity to respond. I'll give you the opportunity to respond, Mr. Sapra.
In this particular case, the ECIR or an FIR is the starting of an investigation, then court takes cognizance. In this matter, the court had directly taken cognizance of a private criminal complaint in 2012-13. And they had said that 403, 406, 420 with 120B has to be applied. And these are all predicate offences under Section 3 of PMLA to start a ED investigation. So Mr. Sapra should stop lying.
But Shehzad, on that point, and legally speaking, but on that point, shouldn't there have been an ECIR in the first place? You're right that there are predicate offences.
I'm telling you on record, there is an ECIR in this matter. The court has taken cognizance of it. And secondly, if there was no ECIR and they've investigated Mr. Motilal Vora, Oscar Fernandez, they've seized assets. All this while Chidambaram couldn't go to court and say there's no ECIR in this matter.
So there is a
Mr. Congress should not lie about these things.
So there is a direct point that Shehzad is making, that there is an ECIR which has already been filed. Mr. Rasheed Kidwai, please come into this discussion. When you see the political optics of this entire matter really play out, I'm sure you're not surprised. This is a high-profile case. The Congress party, of course, says this is a witch hunt which is going on. The ED says they have a case to make. How do you view these developments? What lies ahead? More political fireworks?
Absolutely, Anusha. It's a very very interesting development, because the opposition, particularly the Congress, is seen as as unreasonable, as someone which is standing for prestige, for the honor of its leaders, having some kind of disregard for courts and for agencies and all. But truth of the matter is slightly different. Anusha, me and you, we all have seen there were 10 years of UPA. There were many allegations were there, whether it was Commonwealth Games or 2G or coal scam. So I would expect, the BJP government, when it came in 2014 onwards, to come up with something more substantive against, the Gandhis than this National Herald case. I don't want to comment on National Herald case because the matter is sub judice, and I frankly do not have that kind of information that my dear fellow panelists have. So I'm saying this is some. And second thing, a very basic thing as a citizen of this country. See, we have a somewhat corrupt political system. The poll expenses ceiling is 50 lakh for assembly and 75 lakh for parliament. We know that every political party of significance spends 5 times, 10 times more than that. And how is it? I know Shehzad has pointed out 2-3 cases of some BJP fellow or people associated with BJP. How is it that in every second case of corruption we have an opposition entity? These are the things. These are the questions that need to be asked and debated. This is not to give clean sheet to the Congress. If there is a case against Rahul, he should be arrested tonight.
All right. I want to bring in a brief response from Shehzad and Mr. Sapra both. Mr. Sapra, first to you. Various leaders of the opposition and the Congress party went to the court and challenged the PMLA Act. Never mind that this act was very much in force when the UPA was in power. And the same enforcement directorate was under the command of the then ruling government, which was a UPA government. If the agencies like ED can be misused and PMLA can be misused, it would have been misused under your government as well. Now, if the BJP is saying that we are making sure that the due process of law takes its course, what's wrong about that? The PMLA existed under the Congress rule as well, didn't it?
See, we never misused, and like rightly Mr. Kidwai now said, he mentioned about CWG and coal cases. Let me also remind you that under our regime, A. Raja was also imprisoned, and Kanimori, Dayanidhi Maran, or maybe Suresh Kalmadi, maybe Janardhan Reddy, and so Congress was not biased during its tenure. But here we are seeing that since 8 years, not a single BJP leader. Now, let me also point out when Shehzad was talking, there was one Piyush Jain. He was raided in Kanpur by ED and 275 crores cash. The entire media showed. That Piyush Jain is out on bail, and BJP leaders helped him to get bail because he was closer to the BJP leaders. So why they are not investigating that? Why they are not investigating the Meghalaya where BJP leader, the vice president of BJP, Bernard Marak, he is involved into prostitution racket? Why that is not being investigated?
Okay, Shehzad,
I can give you names of all the opposition
please
leaders
respond to all the allegations that Mr. Sapra is making. And one more point I'd like to add. And one more point I'd like to add. Shehzad, you might want to respond to this as well. While you may have pointed out to certain cases of a Gujarat BJP leader or various other leaders which have been probed by the Enforcement Directorate, the argument of the opposition is that no other high-profile name has been under the scanner of the Enforcement Directorate or CBI, especially people who were earlier in the opposition camp and have now shifted to the BJP.
First of all, you need to have bravado on steroids to come and say that in our time there was no allegation on the agency. The Supreme Court said caged parrot. And I remember Anusha used to cover courts, and in the last 8 years no such observation or finding has come against any agency under Modi government. तो झूठ बोलने की भी सीमा होती है चरणजीत जी. आप तो अच्छे इंसान हैं. आप सुन लीजिए चरणजीत जी, I did not interrupt. चरणजीत जी
बोलने दीजिए उनको.
अरे भाई मैंने आपको इंटरप्ट नहीं किया है ना. आप क्यों बौखला जाते हैं भाई सड़कों पर.
सापरा जी उनको बोलने.
सुन लीजिए एक बात. दूसरी बात, second point is that the entire night their argument is अरे उसको क्यों नहीं पकड़ा, इसको क्यों नहीं पकड़ा. In law, in criminal law, is this a defense? That murderer has taken place and you have not caught that murderer, hence my murder is maaf.
No, that is not a defense. Shehzad, you're right. Legally, that's not a defense. Shehzad, legally, that's not a defense, but there is also an argument of political morality, isn't it? Please come to that. Yes.
I make an allegation of Charanjit. Charanjit makes an allegation of me. I don't want to remind Charanjit of the statements they made in defense of Mr. Biswa Sarma and in defense of Mr. Khadse and many other personalities who are now with them or who are now with us. So let's go by one standard. Court ne jo bola hai. In Satyendra Jain matter, court has said something. In Partha matter, court has said something. In Uddhav matter, the remand has been given of Sanjay Raut by a court. And in Congress matter, court has said something. But when court says something, these people come and say, nee, this is all vendetta and vindictive. Are courts vindictive? Chaliye, BJP is vindictive, Modi is vindictive, Shehzad is vindictive. Let's go by what courts are saying. Now, finally, now Mr. Rasheed Kidwai, I have great respect for him. But Mr. Rasheed Kidwai, is this an editorial line that I have to monkey balance? Ki iske baare mein kuch likha to uske baare mein bhi kuch likhna hai? Sir, if BJP is not doing corruption, I should pick up 2 BJP people because Congress is fully corrupt. Sir, this is not an editorial line. Ki kuch article likhna hai to 2 gaali Congress ko de
Shehzad, that's not a fair comment on the editorial line as well.
I did not mention it for any personal.
No.
If somebody is taking personally, they have understood where it hits.
No, Shehzad, another point that Mr. Kidwai raised was that there were very serious scam allegations that were made during the UPA era that led, rightly so, to the downfall of the UPA. It included coal scam, 2G. How come when this government came to power, none of those investigations could actually secure the kind of prosecutions and the kind of, convictions that one would have anticipated in the beginning?
Okay, so now in many of those matters, we know that the prosecution had started under a corrupt UPA and how they destroyed the evidences in many matters. I can come and discuss that in detail, whichever matter he wants. But having said that, either we are vindictive and we would have convicted them or we would have put them in jail the first night we came to power, or we are allowing the law process to play out. What are we first? Decide that. Are we vindictive or are we allowing the process of law?
That's a fair point you're making. That's a fair point you're making. I want to bring in Kailash Adhikari and Swapnil Kothari both into the discussion. They've been patiently waiting. Kailash ji, coming to you first. This entire controversy, Enforcement Directorate says we are only following the much pending due process of law. Do not make this political. Congress party calls it a political witch hunt. In the next few days, how do you see this matter really playing out in the political arena?
Anusha, nowadays it has become a fashion by the opposition political parties to call any action that is taken by the investigative agencies as a political witch hunt. Now, they are very competent agencies. We all know they are run by very competent people who are very qualified people, and they are doing their job. And in this particular case, it is not something which has cropped up overnight or which has cropped up just like 15 days ago. It is going on since past a decade, and there have been incriminating evidences. So naturally, the investigative agencies will take no cognizance of that. The court has taken, the judiciary has taken cognizance of that, and on the basis of which the investigative agencies are doing their job. Now, they are following due procedure of law. Now, on the basis of this, creating a furor, on the streets of the national capital, not allowing the parliament to function. I mean, in whose benefit it is? The people of the country, finally, they want the parliament to function. And when they see that the opposition is just on these particular, their own political grounds, if they're not getting satisfied and they're doing this, naturally, the people of the country are watching it.
Okay, Swapnil, you want to